the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. Tough criticism of Israel from the U.S. and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now on this episode of the Week in Review. Hello and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. The U.S. ambassador to Israel on Sunday offered perhaps the sharpest critique yet by a major U.S. official of Israel's occupation of the West Bank. Too much Israeli vigilantism in the West Bank goes unchecked, Ambassador Daniel Shapiro said in a speech, adding, "At times it seems Israel has two standards of adherence to rule of law on the West Bank, one for Jews and one for Palestinians." Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded almost immediately, citing recent terror attacks by Palestinians against Jews. The ambassador's statements on the day when a mother of 6 who was murdered is buried and on a day when a pregnant woman is stabbed are unacceptable and wrong. There has been a general amplification of concerns by State Department and other officials regarding Israel's actions amid the occupation in recent months, and particularly since the re-election of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who said on the eve of that re-election that there would not be a Palestinian state while he is Prime Minister. And the European Union is stepping up its rhetoric as well. In a statement Monday from the 28 EU foreign ministers, Israel's policies in the West Bank were noted, and EU ministers said settlements must be explicitly excluded from deal-making with the EU. All agreements between the State of Israel and the EU must unequivocally and explicitly indicate their inapplicability to the territories occupied by Israel in 1967, the statement declared. And drawing a line of difference between the West Bank and Gaza on the one hand and mainland Israel on the other, the statement added, "This does not constitute a boycott of Israel, which the EU strongly opposes." Finally, this week on Up Close, how can our most basic human behaviors work against us? And what can we do to use them in our favor? They're called the artisans of crime, and con artists use what they know about human behavior to identify, lure, and take advantage of a victim. How and why does it work? New Yorker contributing writer Maria Konnikova explains in The Confidence Game why we fall for it every time. But understanding all these little bits of psychology is not only helpful in avoiding becoming a victim, we can also learn to be better members of society. In the case of our next author, we can learn to be better co-workers. Esquire senior editor Ross McCammon talks about that in Works Well with Others, an outsider's guide to shaking hands, shutting up, handling jerks, and other crucial skills in business that no one ever teaches you. Here's some of the highlights from my interview with Ross McCammon. I think if there's one thing that so many of us get wrong every day, every interaction, is that we can't get out of our own way, right? We can't just figure out how to just be with other people.
Yeah, especially when you feel in over your head. If you're starting a new job or maybe starting your first big job, one thing you obsess over, I think, a lot is the job itself. But the other part of working is working with people, and that is a difficult thing. It's sort of like going to a family reunion. You wouldn't necessarily choose to hang out with these people, but you need to, and you need to have a good time, but you also need to work. And if you're a little freaked out, that the social aspect can kind of go by the wayside. But I think it's a really important thing. I think it's part of a whole hidden landscape of skills that nobody ever really talks about.
And this relationship that we have with people at work, it's this weird third relationship. They're neither friend nor family. They're not people, and they're not people who we just kind of do business with and that's it. We have to have a little bit more there, but not too much.
Yeah. And it's amazing because we spend more time with the guy in the next cubicle over than we do sometimes with our own families, with our children. In a lot of cases, in those relationships, while they can be challenging, they can also be, they're also, really, really important.
You start off with some stories about yourself and how you had a mix of success and failure in establishing some of these relationships early on.
About 10 years ago, when I came to work at Esquire in New York from an in-flight magazine in Dallas, I felt a little intimidated. Or a lot intimidated. I felt in over my head. And when I got here, I screwed up in lots of ways. I mean, not only did I screw up at my job, and tasks and things like that, but socially, I sort of, made what I thought were some missteps. The first thing I ever did at Esquire was offer to shake the hand of a colleague in the men's room before I even had walked into the office. I would suggest that's not the right approach. Just wait to introduce yourself after that. But in any case, that there are all kinds of ways that I think I screwed up. But I think what I write about in the book is that that's really important. That's a really important thing to do early on in a job, especially one that intimidates you, because if you're not screwing up, I think you're probably not in the right position. It's probably not the big job that you hoped it would be. You need to be challenged.
You can see the full episode of Up Close on the Jewish Channel on cable. You can also listen to the full audio of Up Close as a podcast, available on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable. Time Warner Cable Channel 1640, IOFLM Channel 505, RCN Channel 268, Cox Cable Channel 1, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, and on Comcast on the on-demand menu on premium channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.